started.
Nice. We are on the air.
Well, you're unofficially on the air.
Hello, viewers.
You're on the pre-show air.
Yeah, this is the Metachewy pre-show. This is when we are just getting the studio set up.
Twitch has accepted the stream.
It's good to hear. Thank you, Twitch.
YouTube has accepted the stream. Facebook has accepted the stream. You going to do your 30 seconds of silence before I start the timer?
Let's do like 15 seconds of silence here.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Think Twice Radio, and welcome to another episode of the Metachewy Livestream. I'm Metachewy, and welcome to my live stream. So today's live stream, I'm recording. This is December 3rd, 2024. I'm going to cover the latest Buffalo Bills game. So the Buffalo Bills defeated the 49ers in a snow game classic where they've clinched their fifth consecutive AFC East. And then we will cover some local developments in city of Buffalo politics and talk about the Department of Government efficiency. And then, I'm going to talk about New York State crypto regulations, so specifically talk about some of the regulations that New York State residents face. So a segment on New York State crypto and specifically the BIT license, which is the governing document that we'll get into. But first, let's start with the Buffalo Bills. So last Sunday, the Buffalo Bills played the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football in the snow, and it was a classic game. So the Buffalo Bills emerged victorious, and just wanted to provide my commentary as a Buffalo Bills fan. Let me put on my hat here. They won their fifth consecutive AFC East, which is really, as someone that's been a Bills fan my whole life, and really going through the whole drought of 17 years of missing the playoffs, it's quite these are the good days. These are, the days. I'm sure this can't continue forever, but it's very good to be in the point. So we've clinched the AFC East now. Now we're just really fighting for the number one seed. So we're one game behind the Kansas City Chiefs, but we hold the tiebreaker because we beat the Chiefs earlier in the year. So if the Chiefs, if there's about 5 games left in the season, if we win one more game than the Chiefs, or the Chiefs lose one more than us, we will be the first seed, which I think this year would be such a huge advantage. As a team that wants to win the Super Bowl this year, I think the Bills, we've never had the first seed or the number one seed, which is such an advantage of having the one seed is you get the first round off, so you get to rest and recuperate while other teams are not only playing physical, tough-nosed playoff football, but also have the potential of being upset, because when you get to the playoffs, every team's good, and it's only 60 minutes of football. So that's what's next on the Bills. And I want to talk, specifically, talk about Josh Allen and the game he had. I think that's the biggest story. I think the discussions have started for MVP, which I think at this point, Josh Allen has as good a case as anyone to win the Most Valuable Player award. Really the only other competition at this point seems to be the Philadelphia Eagles running back Saquon Barkley, who's on pace to potentially set the single season rushing record. But I think MVP is typically, when you think about most valuable player, I think it'd be hard to deny that if you take Josh Allen off the Bills, he's probably the most valuable part of any team. I think there's a broader discussion. I'd love to see the NFL actually really have kind of turned MVP and anybody is eligible, because at this point it seems to be a quarterback award, mostly because the quarterback is the most important position. It has the biggest impact on the game. But I'd love to see maybe the NFL move towards some sort of model where they keep an MVP that anyone's eligible for, but then also maybe make out separate offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year categories where quarterbacks aren't eligible. Because I think whether it's Saquon Barkley, or I think even the Sine Powell on the Lions, the linemen, there's other players, non-quarterbacks, that don't really maybe have a shot at the MVP but deserve recognition. So that's kind of the biggest thing. And I think the one right, Josh Allen's constructing an MVP highlight reel, and the one I think is this play where he did a little hook and ladder. So he actually threw a touchdown pass to himself. So as someone, and I have Josh Allen on my fantasy team, he literally throws throws the pass to his receiver, catches it on a lateral, and then goes in for a score. So this play, especially in fantasy football terms, was pretty remarkable in that Josh Allen technically threw a touchdown pass to himself. So it was a 10-point play in fantasy, which is extremely rare. And I think, just incredible. I mean, just watching that play, even that catch by Cooper, that was my first impression when I saw the play. Was wow, that was a really nice catch because it was thrown behind him. But the whole thing, right? You've got just a really unique, one of a kind play, and then the photo moment of him diving at the thing with the snow backdrop is really, I think, right, one of the most iconic plays of his career at this point. And at this point, who knows? Maybe next week he'll have another play. 'Cause that play against the Chief, this 4th down scramble, he's just having consistently, these are remarkable plays that are it's just really a joy to be a Bills fan at this point. So we'll see. I think has a good feeling, but I think I can speak about kind of the future of the season. So moving forward, I mean, next week we play the Rams, which will be a big game. So we travel to LA to play the LA Rams. The week after that, we play the Detroit Lions, which I think I speak for all Bills fans of. I know personally I would love to see if that's a preview of a Super Bowl, and I think, knock on wood, I don't want to say that the Bills are going to the Super Bowl. I've been a Bills fan. I know to never really speak it out loud, but I think, if there is karmic justice, I think it would be great to have the Bills and the Lions in the Super Bowl this year. And I think that would be the game that not just Bills and Lions fans want to see, but I think all of America needs to see. To have two Rust Belt franchises that have never won the Super Bowl going at it would be quite a game. But yeah, that's too far to say, but I think, that's a game I'm looking forward to. And yeah, especially now it's just with the division game. So this means that we will have a home playoff game at a minimum. So there will be at least one game in Orchard Park. And yeah, the rest of the season is all about getting the number 1 seed, because in the NFL, the number 1 seed's it's such an advantage. You get the first round off, you've got a rest week, and then you get the lowest remaining seed at home the next week, and you just win that one game, and you're in the conference championship game. So that's about a little bit about the Bills. So next, I want to pivot to New York State crypto. So I want to spend a little time here just recording a piece of content about cryptocurrency, and specifically how cryptocurrency applies in New York State, because I think it's something that a lot of New York State residents specifically need to be aware of. So I want to do a little deep dive today into really specifically cryptocurrency in New York State. So what that looks like, what residents need to be aware of. So that will be kind of the content of this segment. So I think the first thing that I think is to be aware of is just New York State is, this is going to sound a little ridiculous, but New York State, I call it the crypto Korea, because it's literally, it has some of the most burdensome regulations, not just in the United States, but in actually all of planet Earth. So this is a representation, a flag. I basically took the North Korean flag, switched it out for New York blue and some Bitcoin green, or Bitcoin orange, and put New York State in the circle because, New York State is the most hostile regulatory environment in the United States for sure, but especially when you use apps, whether it's Coinbase or something, a lot of times you'll just see general crypto companies say in, the fine print of their apps, we don't service customers in, Eastern Ukraine, Iran, Afghanistan, and New York State, and North Korea and other places. And New York State's just kind of thrown in there as its own thing. So I think the first thing that you need to understand being in New York State is just really why that is, which I think is all rooted in the actual bit license. So what is the bit license? So bit license is it's a piece of legislation that was written back in like 1415 when crypto was just an emerging industry. At this point, New York State, they were ahead of the curve in crypto regulations, right? And I think in 1415, the New York State Department of Financial Services, they adopted some code. And actually, it's the Department of Financial Services which provides regulations on crypto in New York State. And essentially, my my point of view or how I see it is that New York kind of adopted really tough regulations for crypto specifically because of they're the financial capital of the legacy finance world. So right, Wall Street, Manhattan is the it's the financial capital. It's Wall Street. It's the financial capital of the world. And New York State has taken the position of being extremely aggressive on regulation. I mean, they say to protect consumers. But yeah, it's a really hard environment to operate in. I mean, just for little people that want to buy crypto, it restricts them, but also anyone liking to do or wanting to do business in New York State. So, so here's the Department of Financial Services website where they have some links. Yeah, they have this. They call it Volt of the It's like the virtual currency unit of the DFS. Right. So they have. It says about Volt. So their vision, right? New York State's vision is to, continue as the preeminent regulator of virtual currency. So really, I mean, the vision statement right there is, they're aspiring to be the preeminent regulator of virtual currency, is the Volt. And, yeah, this bit license, so let's see if I can read a little bit about it. It really, so for example, New York State has green listed coins. So what's a green listed coin? So they say that any entity licensed or chartered by the New York State Department of Financial Services or the DFS to conduct virtual currency business activities in New York may list coins on the green list without having a separate DFS approved coin listing policy. So even if you get a bit license, so a bit license is just permission to operate a crypto business in New York State. Even if you get one of those license, there's only certain coins that you can list without needing additional permissions. So those coins are Bitcoin, Ethereum, the Gemini dollar, GMO yen, the Gemini yen, I guess. These other ones I don't even know. I mean, really, Bitcoin and Ethereum are the only two green listed coins. Then there's some stable dollars like the Gemini dollar, GMO, JPY, or the G yen, GMO USD, Pax Gold, Pax dollar, PayPal dollar. That's it. Those are the only green listed coins in New York State. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, which is someone who's somewhat into crypto, that's just absurd on its face. The fact that the only two coins that you can buy in New York State are Bitcoin and Ethereum. I mean, no Dogecoin, no Solana. There's even other coins, and it really, I mean, right? Crypto is the Wild West. It's the new Wild West. We don't have a physical frontier to explore anymore. The new frontier is the internet, and that is crypto. That is Web3. So Bitcoin and Ethereum are those are the two biggest cryptos at this point in time, and I'm recording this late 2024. But there is a whole Wild West of coins or currencies that are out there. So, I mean, Solana, Doge, Ripple recently became number 3. So there's like the top 10. There's certain major coins, but then, I mean, there's coins very far out on the spectrum, which are super risky, but just the idea that you have, I mean, there's all sorts of coins, and yeah, there's coins far on the spectrum that are risky. It's kind of, I mean, in 2024 here, now the bit license, I think this green listed coin list has actually become less. I think things like Chainlink, Chainlink and Doge, I know, used to be green listed, and that coin is connected. So even if you do get a license to operate in New York State, in order to offer other coins like Solana, for example, you would need additional permission from the DFS, which this is just, that's on its face is absurd. Other states don't even have, I think, green listed coins. So that's the big one. If New York State DFS is saying Bitcoin, Ethereum are really the only two major coins that they've said are safe. So yeah, I think the other, I mean, the core thing, and I'll do future recordings just on this because it's super nuanced, just New York State crypto regulations. And if there's one thing New York State's doing well, it is actually adopting regulations, right? They have so many regulations that it's almost, they've overdone it at this point. My point of view is this is one of the most innovative, or this is maybe the most innovative forward-thinking industry on planet Earth, and New York State is essentially chasing these companies in this industry away, right? If you're a serious crypto company, you are not going to headquarter in New York State. That's probably the last place in the United States that you're going to want to locate your business. So I think the bit license, the one I wanted to cover here is right. So this is Title 23 Financial Services of the city code. So 200.1 is an introduction to it. Let's see if I can find. I want to find the one section where it literally lists out the types of uses that are that I think it's 200 by 7 or here. I'm just clicking around here trying to find the actual specific section here that says yeah, but essentially there's essential uses that it does regulate. And yeah, so it's the city code of the city. The actual New York State has these regulations that just make it super hard to regulate. And even if you go on the Attorney General site, they have enforcement, right? Attorney General enforcement actions. They're kind of listing this as like things they're really proud of. They have New York State Attorney General. They sued the cryptocurrency platform KuCoin for failing to register as securities in commodities broker and falsely representing itself as a marketplace. I know KuCoin, for example, is it's a centralized exchange. So in crypto, there's right, exchange is essentially just a place that you can buy cryptocurrencies, kind of like a NASDAQ, but just an interface. Think of it as an interface for you to trade coins. So it's frequently used. So there's two different types. There's centralized exchanges, and then there's decentralized exchanges. So I think the most easiest thing to first understand is a centralized exchange. So a centralized exchange is a thing very similar to a bank in crypto of Coinbase. Coinbase is, I mean, as a crypto user, it's really in New York State the only centralized exchange that you can really use. And a centralized exchange, you just want to think of it as it's kind of like a crypto bank. It's a legitimate company. There's people that work there. There's a help hotline. I'm sure if you wanted to call Coinbase, had problems with your account, there's a phone number you can call people. There's a whole business. There's a CEO. It's a traditional company. In these centralized exchanges, Coinbase is really the only one I found as a New York State resident that I am able to use. So, and KuCoin is another kind of centralized exchange, not well as known, that is available to other people all over the world and in New York State. And they've essentially been banned from New York State. I think Binance is another very popular centralized exchange, and even Binance, you used to be able to use it in New York State, and now you can't use Binance. And really, Coinbase is the only centralized exchange that is really complies with all the regulations and is able to be used by New York State residents. And even, I mean, here's some of the language from the New York State Attorney General. So they say here, to protect New Yorkers from this extreme volatility, Attorney General James offers New Yorkers guidance on the various risks associated with cryptocurrencies. The virtual currency market exposes investors to dangerous risks such as wild price swings and potential losses due to hacking, fraud, or theft. Investors in virtual assets should be aware of the many significant risks of investing in these products, including highly speculative and unpredictable value. Easy to create. Virtual currencies spread through the market quickly. Their underlying value is not backed by real assets and can behave unpredictably. Prices can swing wildly and crash without warning or regard to any changes in the real economy. Price fluctuations can be driven by market hype on social media platforms. How to say? Just me reading it. It feels like. Really, it feels like the DARE program. If anyone remembers that, any millennials it's essentially this organization that's, against drugs, and they'd come and they'd lecture students, don't do drugs or they're bad for you, and then list out, scare people into it. And this seems like the New York State Attorney General's office is taking a similar approach of, we're going to scare people into not using cryptocurrencies. And right, there's elements of truth to this, right? There is hacking and price swings and fraud and theft in crypto. That is definitely a thing. I'd argue that actually kind of makes it part of the exciting part of being there, right? It's there's a level of excitement there that's not in, watching your money in a bank account collect pennies of interest every year. But yeah, I think it's a little exaggerating. Other thing she has is difficulty cashing out investments, which is ironic. They're seeing that they've made it so hard for people to cash into crypto. So they say there's no guarantee that you'll be able to liquidate your investments when you want, such as when the crypto markets begin to crash. During times of crisis, trading platforms may halt trading or claim to experience technical difficulties, preventing you from accessing your assets. This is ironic because this is exactly what happens during bank runs, which we fortunately haven't had yet, but I think it's only a matter of time with our fractionalized banking and the fact that they don't actually have your money at the bank. They cite higher transaction costs, unstable stable coins, hidden trading costs, and conflict of interest, and limited oversight are kind of some of their investment risks. And that's the Attorney General of the state. So I think, so that's it's just to be aware as a New York State resident, and even someone that's maybe into crypto or someone that's, considering getting involved with it. Just be aware that if you are in New York State, it is, not even exaggerating, one of the most restricted environments on planet Earth. Definitely the United States, but right, centralized exchanges like Coinbase, like a KuCoin, they view New York State residents in the same bucket with North Koreans or people from Iran or Eastern Ukraine. There's nothing against those people, but just when I'm an American, I think of North Korean or some countries that we have enemies with, and that's how strict. And really, the reason that I think New York State is unique is they were first faced with this as the financial epicenter of the world, right? And Wall Street. So these regulations were really, it's disappointing as a New York resident because New York had the point of view of all the states. They could have been the new financial center of this new crypto world, and they, through regulations, through these policies, have pushed all the innovation. All the companies that were based in New York City have really discouraged any sort of companies, whether it's mining or crypto companies, from operating in New York. It's just much easier, especially in a industry which is naturally, right, natively digital, and where there are no physical barriers. I mean, if you're a crypto software company, you can write code from anywhere. That's exactly what most companies have taken the point of, or taken the position of doing. And so I think, Coinbase is the number one place to buy crypto in New York State. That's a centralized exchange. That works for most people. And then if you are interested in kind of pushing the frontier in crypto in New York State, I have found just decentralized exchanges to kind of be the way to go. So that requires you kind of moving your assets from a centralized exchange like Coinbase into your own wallet, whether it's a hardware or software wallet, and then using that. So whether it's a MetaMask wallet or a Phantom wallet, but then once you kind of get it into your own possession, you can then operate with a lot of decentralized exchanges, whether it's a Radium, a Uniswap. Once you get kind of into the crypto sphere, crypto doesn't really care about, what state's on your driver's license. They really just care about, do you have the keys to the wallet, and that's really the only thing that counts. So that's a little bit about the bit license. And I'll do future segments on New York State, because I think there's a lot to cover, specifically in New York State. We didn't even get really into mining. I know New York State has been pretty hostile to a lot of mining operations in New York State. I know specifically there's one in Messina, an old legacy power plant that is being used here locally. There's a plant in Tonawanda, and the mining itself is its own textbook, because even that energy usage, I mean, the short story is crypto mining shows a lot of potential in helping create a renewable future through kind of making renewable energy products that currently waste a lot of energy, right? Because they're producing lots of energy on the spot, but there's no users there to plug in and use it. So a lot of energy that, I use the example of a waterfall in a remote rural area, which could be creating turbines. Right now in our current economy, it's not financially viable because, okay, you're generating a lot of energy, but there's no users. The ability to store energy, send it somewhere, and use it is not as developed. Whereas with Bitcoin, what it does is it could make renewable products, renewable energy projects like a waterfall in a remote area. You could just bring Bitcoin miners there, plug them in on the spot, use some of the electricity, but all the wasted energy, all the stranded energy that's just being literally created and then going away, turning that into an asset. That's one potential future, but then, right, it's nuanced and complicated. There's also the potential to keep legacy fossil fuel factories alive because, crypto, we could just turn it into a crypto mining regulation, which is not the future I think anyone wants to see. I think we need to move towards a new source of energies. We need to, we need new, more efficient methods of creating energy. We don't need to be, burning fossil fuels, burning, carbon-based products into the atmosphere for future generations to deal with. So that's just the mining in itself. And I guess, I'd love to help people in New York State. I know I've had some issues just acquiring currencies. So whether it's trading or just exploring, right? It's a barrier that New York residents deal with. There's lots of exciting projects. I mean, there's our super risky projects, but there's also projects out there that are going to change humanity for the better and shutting New York State residents out of opportunities, especially when, working class poor people don't have an opportunity to generate wealth because they make their income through an hourly wage, and through inflation, the value of their time is becoming less. And then, one of the reasons I'm so optimistic about crypto in that industry is that there's really a lot less barriers to entry. You just need an internet connection, some curiosity, and a little bit of technical ability, and you can kind of explore. Whereas, even the legacy world, there's this term called accredited investors. There's so many investment activities and opportunities that are only available to accredited investors, or, people that have certain qualifications or a certain amount of money in their bank account have access to higher opportunities. And that's kind of what crypto does, and, Bitcoin specifically, is just kind of decentralizes and brings democracy and equality to our financial world. And even think about our legacy financial world. The more money you have, right, in this legacy world, more money equals more influence. But on a Bitcoin standard, it doesn't matter if you have, 10 Satoshis or 10,000 Bitcoins. The Bitcoin standard treats you the same. How much you have, it's not affected by it, which I think is, right, when you think about a lot of the corruption we see in our current world, a lot of it is due from, people with more money, more power being able to kind of use pressure points and leverage to extract more power. And it's kind of this unvirtuous cycle that keeps repeating. And I think crypto, especially the hope for Bitcoin, is it, and I'm just talking about New York State residents here, but there's a whole host of people, right? We in the first world, we call people in third world, and even just that term, first world, third world, says it all. But the idea that there's, human beings in countries, right? I'd like to see a future, not just crypto, but I think the whole technology, internet, the future I'd love to see be built is that your geography and where you're born has a lot less to do with, your outcome of your life or your success of your life. And really, whether it's through education, whether it's through, just resources, I think the internet is really making, it's made information available to everybody. Where back in the day we would have, right, all the premier knowledge was stored in, the Vatican Library or in elite universities. The internet has made it so that anybody, anywhere has access to the best information. It's just a matter of finding it, which I think, as digital kind of natives or people growing up here in the early 21st century, just at the start of this internet boom, it's really something I think we just take for granted of, right? Hundreds of years ago, our peasant ancestors would not have, right? If they wanted to learn something, their access to information, it wasn't available. Where now we have so much information, which is almost a new problem, right? To have so much information that you don't know what to believe because you're overwhelmed with information. But it's out there. I think, one of the potentials I'd love to see with technology is just education, being able to, anyone can get an elite education now online by themselves. They don't need to go to Harvard to get a Harvard credential or go to Yale. you could be born in a third world country, but you can find old calculus textbooks or anything you want to learn, you can find it. It's just a matter of getting an internet connection. So that's a little bit of ranting and raving from the cryptosphere. So I talked about a little about the bit license in New York State. There's a lot more, and I think there's a lot more that I'll cover, but that's just the basics. Just being aware that New York State is very burdensome because of the bit license, which is legislation actually in the state code that puts a lot of language and regulations on the industry as a whole. Okay, so let's talk about Doge. So I guess I'm kind of announcing here. Let's see. Yeah, Doge. So Doge is kind of crypto related, but also it's just kind of, Doge can mean a lot of things. So I mean in the Department of Government Efficiency. So I'd like to announce that I am starting my own, or starting our own, Department of Government Efficiency, or Department of Government Efficiency here in Buffalo. So moving forward, I'm identifying as I don't know what my title will be, but I'm identifying as the Department of Government Efficiency. I think just taking, I think maybe I was ahead of the curve on this. Of actually, when I ran for city controller, which is almost over a year now, right? Part of my campaign was being a watchdog. So I was kind of trying to run a meme style campaign to be city controller, which was a learning experience. We'll call it a learning experience. That's what we'll call it. But yeah. So I think the Department of Government Efficiency, our logo will be a sheepdog, right? I think there's a need to differentiate ourselves from a Shiba Inu, but yeah, Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge. It started as a meme. It's an internet meme. It's about dogs. It's about Dogecoin, and I think right now it's getting some publicity online. I know there's a national effort to start a Department of Government Efficiency, but I'd love to see smaller units. I would love to see smaller units of Department of Government Efficiencies. I think every state, every city, every municipality in America needs a Department of Government Efficiency. And I think there's a reason I'm uniquely positioned to start one in the city of Buffalo. I mean, one, as someone, I'm not permitted to exist in the current, the legacy system. I have no hope of ever being employed at City Hall. Again, I was fired from City Hall, and I've gone into that in great depths in past videos, which, if you're interested, you can find those on YouTube. But yeah, I just also think my experience as the open data project manager and coordinator, whatever they called me. I think there's a lot of opportunities in the city of Buffalo to use data to be more efficient. Just today I was watching a discussion in the council chambers. They're talking in the civil service, or it was the finance committee, and they were essentially talking about overtime. And there's a recent report by the Investigative Post that the city of Buffalo has been over budget on overtime significantly for, many years, but I think this year it was over 115% over budget. So I think they budgeted for $20 million of overtime from employees. And this year it's somewhere in the 40s. And there was a comment there from one of the council members asking about DPW, so the Department of Public Works, and how much of this overtime overruns is correlated to storm events like the storm we just recently had this weekend, or the blizzard a few Christmases ago. We have these extreme weather events in Buffalo with snow, where you have, it's all hands on deck at that point. You need all the DPWs to show up to work and plow streets. And really, I think there was an opportunity where that data is out there. It's on the Buffalo Open Data Portal. You could filter the city's open data payroll set, search, filter by overtime by the DPW, and see it over months. So I just think a good use of my abilities. Even since I've been fired, I think I still live in the city of Buffalo. I'm affected by the decisions of City Hall, and I need to contribute somehow. And I think my way for doing it is kind of turning it into a meme, carrying this meme forward, but also trying to help City Hall become more efficient. And I think, there's just a need for it. So I think one of the first initiatives that the City of Buffalo Department of Open, or this City of Buffalo Department of Government Efficiency is going to look at is the City of Buffalo's human resources system. It's my belief, and the Department of Government Efficiency's belief, that the human resources provisional pipelines are corroded with corruption. And like any plumber knows, right, if you have a rusted galvanized pipe that's been, being corroded over years or decades, the best thing to do is not to tinker with it, but to actually cut it out and replace it with new pipe. So I'll be filing an item soon, and hopefully at the next meeting, asking for we're recommending some potential civil service reforms. I think just from some of my research and understanding of provisional human resources law, as well as scanning the city's open data portal set, I believe that there's some real issues in the provisional pipelines of the city of Buffalo. Specifically, I think it was the strategy, or I don't know if it was a strategy, but it's what's happened is the city has been abusing provisional employment. So provisional employment is intended to be kind of temporary stopgap, right? You have a job, you need someone to do the job right now. So you can do these provisionals, which are kind of these 9 months appointments to put someone in a job before a civil service exam is held, right? And the point of the civil service exam is to, one, find the most qualified individual. So if we're taking civil service exams, whoever scores best, right? You want the people that highest scores on the test to have the most confidence against those jobs. And I think what the city has essentially been doing for many positions is not offering civil service exams. So they're keeping these people, or city employees, right? Taxpayer dollars are going to employees that the city hires with this 9 month provisional appointment, and they're keeping people provisionally indefinitely. One, so they can kind of avoid the whole civil service exam, because the jobs don't go to who's the most qualified. The provisional appointment allows you to just appoint who you want, which could be good. They could be appointing the most competent people to the job, or they could just be appointing people that they like, that are friends and family. And I think that is essentially what they've been doing for a lot of positions. So yeah, I think the provisional appointment, and two, it just politicizes the job. So another reason City Hall has been abusing provisional law is because provisional employees don't have certain protections. So provisional employees are not entitled to termination proceedings. So they can be fired at will. And I could go deeply into it, but essentially by keeping employees provisionally indefinitely, they can fire it at will. So really, it could give them the excuse or the reason to identify or fire anyone, which kind of creates the culture, or my experience of the culture of it. It creates, right, a certain culture. It creates a culture of people that aren't able to speak out and speak the truth, or provide their opinions on, their expertise, because, they're fear that they could be fired at any moment. Because as someone that worked at City Hall for 18 months, there's definitely a culture there that's embedded in the culture of don't question anything, kind of what do you want me to do about it culture. That right, I think Steve Jobs has always had the analogy of, right, a bunch of rocks in a bag going against each other grinding, right? It creates it's that tension, that that kind of environment that creates the best ideas and creates the best service. And I think, right, the hope is, if the city was holding civil service exams, they'd be, one, having the most competent people in those jobs, and also giving the most competent people protection so that they could actually not feel afraid to use their competency. Or I think one of the problems is provisionals, they might be competent because they're hired to a job, but if they can't speak out or speak truly or freely and have no protections, you just have an environment where I think what happened to me was kind of the normal, which I was kind of fired. One reason I think was retaliation for me asking for a civil service exam. And yeah, I don't want to get into the weeds too much of it, but I think that's going to be one initiative that the Department of Government Efficiency is going to focus on first, because I know the mayor's election is coming up, and that's something that the big and it affects everything. But if, right, there's hundreds and thousands and hundreds. And I think there are, I don't know how many specific people, but I think there are over 1,000 bureaucrats that work in City Hall. And those are the real people that are, doing the day-to-day work, gritty work of government. And I think as a taxpayer, a City of Buffalo taxpayer, especially as we're entering this new environment where we need to find money, we need the most competent people in the jobs, and we need to give those competent people the ability to not be fired at will, because then, it gives the executive branch too much power. So, some of my observations: the Department of Government Efficiency. We watched all the City of Buffalo Common Council meetings today. So today was Tuesday, December 3rd. The first issue that really came forward was the Civil Service Committee meeting. At that committee meeting, the heated discussion was that the Common Council is requesting that the deputy mayor, so the new deputy mayor is Brian A. Gould, who was appointed with a salary of over $140,000. I saw some reporting that he is an old friend of acting mayor Scanlon, but he has not showed up to the Common Council chambers. The Common Council just wants to see a resume, and they want to interview him in the council chambers. And it sounded from the Common Council discussions that he may have met individually with certain council members, but he's failed to appear in the Common Council and speak to the full Common Council on the record. So that was really the major issue from the civil service. In the Department of Government Efficiency, we do have an item that's on the Common Council agenda for civil service that was received and filed, which is around the Data Specialist 1 exam that hasn't been offered by the Human Resources Department. So that's on the agenda. The second meeting was the Finance Committee meeting. So at the Finance, there was a representative from the Comptroller's office, and they were discussing the overtime report. So the Comptroller had recently released an overtime report, and essentially, the big thing from the Finance, and you saw this later on at 11 after the Finance, there was a committee of the whole meeting. So in that meeting, there was discussions about the capital budget, which is essentially kind of the city has a capital budget, which is around like infrastructure, and that doesn't run. The city runs on a fiscal year, so the fiscal year for the city is from July 1st to June 30th. So we are on fiscal year 25 now, but the capital budget actually runs on the calendar year. So the capital budget starts on January 1st. The committee of the whole meeting, which is a special meeting just to discuss the capital budget. Essentially, the mayor is proposing, I think it's over $80 million capital budget, whereas traditionally this capital budget has been somewhere 20-30. So he's asking to take out substantially more debt at the city level for the capital budget. And I think one of the projects was essentially he's asking to issue some bonds for the Buffalo public schools. And I know one of the projects was an investment at Buff State for, I think it was Da Vinci High School. But yes, I think in some of the acting mayor Scanlon, who was in the chamber, and he talked about the Bloomberg Institute and the Cooney School for, I think it's ISG or there's a government school at the City University of New York. And it seemed like he had been using some language in there about leverage. So the mayor's justification is essentially, the Bloomberg people told us that, I think he mentioned that Buffalo's financial situation is unique in the amount of debt it's taken on. So it seems like it might be a new strategy. I don't know. It was kind of hard to understand from the finance if it was really, there's promises that, this money is going to be payoff, but there was really no, just an environment where the city, right, we are moving towards, and I think you saw too, the acting mayor, it was clear from the finance department that he's created this directive towards all the commissioners to 10%, cut your budgets by 10%. So I think right now the city departments are in the process of working on their budget requests for fiscal year 26. So next year's budget, they've been asked to, cut by 10%. So I think there's a lot of, the stated goal is 10% cut to the budget expenses. Department of Government Efficiency would love to bring up potential more costs. I think there's, more than 10%, especially if one example is just provisional employment. If the city has been keeping provisional employees provisional for more than 9 months, and they can be terminated at will. There's a whole host of city employees that could be just terminated, right, without termination rights, if that's how City Hall operates, which would be a lot of cost savings to the city. So yeah, the Department of Government Efficiency Buffalo is going to be doing some analytics on the open data portal to find maybe more efficiencies in our city government. I mean, one of the big things is, another discussion too at finance was that essentially it looks like the current acting administration is going to look to move the final American Rescue Plan dollars towards revenue replacements. So you could think of these as, I think they're called the Biden bucks, or the pandemic money that the city got back in the pandemic. The last day of 2024 is the last day that the city can essentially say where they're going to spend that money. And after that, if they don't have that money allotted somewhere, it just goes back to the federal government. Right now, the city of Buffalo has just used most of that money on one of the legal uses for that, which is just revenue replacement, right? So you saw a lot of other cities invest in infrastructure, which was one of the uses. There's many uses to the American Rescue Plan dollars, but what the city of Buffalo chose to do, both the mayor and the common council, was to use the American Rescue Plan money to just plug budget holes. So replace revenue that was never received that they had in the budget. And I mean, a lot of that was not due to the pandemic, just poor budgeting. I think it's been a practice of the city to just kind of make up productive revenues that have no basis in reality, whether it's the hotel occupancy tax or the marijuana money that was promised. A lot of the budgeted revenues for the city have no basis in reality. The previous administration would just make up numbers, and the common council would kind of just cut those numbers back, but really did not provide the type of oversight that the Department of Government Efficiency Buffalo hopes to provide. Because the city is cash strapped, and this next budget season is going to be brutal. I think you're going to see a massive tax increase. I know there's really been no. I mean, this was the first time I've ever heard City Hall say we need to look for efficiencies. We need to cut costs. I mean, really, just past discussions from City of Buffalo has been, increase revenues, and the only way that they've shown that they know how to increase revenue is through increasing taxes. So that's one of the concerns with the recent reassessment, where the city has been increasing, the values of properties, and the Department of Government Efficiency does have a FOIL request asking the Department of Assessment, or the Assessment and Taxation Office, for the actual master data set of the city's new assessment role, because they were claiming equity, and we want to see, how they've equitably distributed the new tax burden. Because essentially, the way it works mostly too is the city of Buffalo, they get, most of the revenue comes from the federal government, from the state government, and then property tax. And the property tax, essentially, there's kind of a gap between what they get from the state and the federals and their operating expenses. And the gap, whatever that gap is, that's what the tax base needs to chip in to pay, and that's kind of the tax burden. So that number will grow this year substantially. One, because costs are rising, right? We all know, we all experience inflation when we go to the grocery store, the lumber store, right? We all individually are facing increasing costs, and this is very true of its municipal, local, state governments. And I think, states are also. I mean, it's just a reality in 2024. It's a reality. I think you've seen everything. I think locally, the Buffalo Bills Stadium, I think now is approaching $2 billion. There was a report that the state's Kensington Expressway project is a $500 million over budget currently. So you're just seeing these construction projects that time is money. The longer something takes, the more costs go up. And it's the same with government. I think you're seeing everything cost more, which is why we need efficiencies in government. So, this year's budget is going to be, you're going to see a substantial proposed tax increase, because the burden is definitely going to go up. All that, the $40 to $50 million that the city has been taking from pandemic money the last few budget cycles and just saying, here, this will cover the cost. That gap, so that revenue replacement that the city has been using pandemic money to fill is now going to need to be filled by City of Buffalo taxpayers, which is the reality. The reality is that these budgets should have been being adjusted so that there was no lost revenue replacement. But essentially, it's been an open secret in City Hall in the Buffalo that the city's not going to be able to afford things, and I think this year is going to be the reckoning. I don't think Buffalo is unique. I think lots of municipal and state governments are struggling everywhere. Right, this is an issue. Every municipality in the United States is facing rising costs, and with rising costs, you need rising revenues. And really, the most way that governments can get revenues through taxes. So you're just going to see more taxes, which hurts in a world of inflation even more because you're already dealing with rising rents, rising grocery costs. So just covering more in your tax bill. It's going to be painful, and I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some sort of federal. I don't know. We'll see. Is there going to be another bailout? I guess it just doesn't feel good. That's why it's going to be the municipalities that are the most efficient that are going to succeed. I think this is maybe a moment, not just nationally, but also at the citywide. There's some real passion in the council chambers, and I think you could really talk, especially with the administration that's been running the city leaving. There's a vacuum in leadership, and I think the language and the attitude in the council chambers did seem much different today in a good way. It seemed like there was some energy, and I don't want to say optimism, but some of the council members seem particularly fired up today. I think it was kind of hard. I know me too, personally. When the administration is so corrupt and there is no hope of change, you do kind of get disheartened. I think that's what's inspired this Department of Government Efficiency, Buffalo, is maybe my voice, maybe our voices. We can get some more efficiencies in government. I think the council chambers, they know too. Yeah, just even the language coming from the admin finance commissioner that they're looking to cut costs is like not something in my entire time finding the council I've never heard them say that out loud in public. Because that's ultimately the reality. We're running into reality of the council. The city cannot pretend anymore there's not an issue. They can't kick the can. The can is it's arrived, and it's going to kick us if we don't kick it. Because so I think there needs to be radical, reconstruction of not just the city of Buffalo human resources, but everything. I mean, I think, there's probably lots. I mean, we only know, we know so little, right? Between the fire clerk that was being paid $500,000 at City Hall, that was just never discovered why. We don't know what was in those bureau boxes that the FBI took out of the Office of Strategic Planning. Although, one thing we've seen positively from the new administration is now that we have an acting mayor, all of the employees and commissioners and appointees who were appointed by Mayor Brown now are like getting axed. It's like a Game of Thrones series where people are just getting axed because the person that appointed them is no longer there. And so you saw the Office of Strategic Planning Executive Director Brendan Mahaffey resigned, and the city's Director of Real Estate, I think the language was that he was relieved of his duties. Brendan Mahaffey specifically, he kind of acted, especially in some of my interactions, he was kind of the city's shadow mayor. Like, right, OSP is connected to Bureau, which is the Buffalo Urban Renewal Agency. Just in my time there, right, I worked for the city as the open data portal, and one of the projects they had me doing was working to do analytics, and I built a centralized dashboard for the city that had arrear information about people that were behind on their water sewer taxes. And it's something I think, even if I was saying that, I kind of realized it's something at the time I felt, right, I kind of used my abilities. I felt good about it because in my mind, at that point, the New York State, it was part of the Buffalo East Housing Assistance Fund. And so the governor had put some money, and there's some pandemic money too. And the aim there was that the city was going to relieve, poor and working class people that were behind on their taxes or water bills, relieve them of those with some money, which I don't think the BHAF or federal money was ever used to do that. I think they might have used the tool I built to kind of maybe, I hope not, but target homeowners. But yeah, Brendan Mahaffey in the short run, I think he was definitely someone that needed to go. And I think it's a brighter day for all us Buffalo citizens that Brendan Mahaffey is no longer in the Office of Strategic Planning. And we also saw O.J. McFoy, right? So the city's sewer and water czar, right? He had this weird relationship where he was, the general manager of Buffalo, both the water board and the sewer authority, which are both the government, but they're not. They're authorities. So they're not the city of Buffalo government, they're the authorities. And he ran both of those. And right, I think there was recent reporting coming out that he was going on business trips all over the country, like multiple times. I think there's one that's just going to be approved for $30,000 to New York, but he was going on all these like international. I think he went to like Switzerland for like some international water conference. And it wasn't just him. He'd take like a whole crew of water board, sewer authorities. And yeah, I get his reasoning was that, yeah, he was leveraging money and blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, in the city of Buffalo, where it came out that during his tenure that they removed fluoride from the water and never told anyone, which fluoride I think is a complex topic. But I know one thing you can't do is take fluoride out of the water and not tell anyone, because that's something, yeah, you need transparency around water. If anything. So he left, he took an engineering job down in Houston. So good riddance. The Buffalo Sewer Authority and the Water Board, I know, are both extremely corrupt. And I think one thing that you might see a push for is for them to hold their public meetings at City Hall. I think right now they hold them at like the water treatment facility on like Bird Island somewhere. I don't know. But that's where they're opening it. And yeah, I just know that that's an entity that needs more efficiencies and more oversight. And then the other one that recently hit was the city's Commissioner of Administration and Finance, Delano Dallo, resigned effective December 16th, which is also huge. That's great news for all the city of Buffalo taxpayers. I know he's the admin finance, so if there's any funny money business going on between the Office of Strategic Planning and the mayor's office, he would know where every penny of that went. And I know one thing I know for sure is that the city was using, I think it was number 28 in Nona Watson versus the city of Buffalo. So Nona Watson, she was the former executive director of the Buffalo Urban Renewal Agency, which is, again, kind of an agency. So it's not the city, but they work hand in hand with the Office of Strategic Planning. So they are the city, but they're not the city at the same time. So the Buffalo Urban Renewal Board, she had reported number 28 in her lawsuit. So she actually blew in that the city of Buffalo was conducting many improprieties in the Office of Strategic Planning. But number 28 in that lawsuit was that they were actually using HUD, so Housing Urban Development Community Block Grant money. So they were taking federal money that was intended for affordable housing and using it to pay select city employees. So instead of paying them with tax dollars, they were paying with housing dollars from the federal government. And I know that was one of the reasons I believe I was terminated from the city was that I spoke publicly with my union president about concerns that I also was being paid with CDBG money, which I don't know. I never know if that's true, but I know that was, I think, a soft point when I pointed that out, because I know the Nona Watson, the administration spun it that, oh, we were vindicated. Look, they resolved the claim, but it was much more complicated than that. Actually, the plaintiff just decided to not take the case forward anymore because they were tired of dealing with, right, the stress, the anxiety that comes with being a whistleblower on a lawsuit. So there are items in there that are very true, and I know for a fact that number 28 of the city was using HUD CDBG money to pay city employees that were tied to a current member of the Office of Strategic Planning in the city of Buffalo. So yeah, that's big news. We've entered the Game of Thrones season of City Hall, and I've always said a change in executive leadership is the most transformational thing that could happen, and I think we're starting to see that positively. Which also I'll close with the new mayor's race. So I think it was the ECDC, so the Erie County Democratic Committee. They announced recently that they're holding a public forum for the mayor's race. So this Friday they'll be holding a forum for their committee members to hear from council candidates. So right now, I think we have 3 announced candidates. We have State Senator Sean Ryan, who's announced his candidacy. Acting Mayor Scanlon, who's now not publicly stated he's running for mayor. He's right now in the campaign phase where he's pretending to be mayor. So he's really much leveraging the acting mayor status to position himself for next year's mayor race. So I'm sure he will jump in. And then also, I think just today, Garnell Whitfield, who is the city of Buffalo's former city's former fire commissioner, announced today that he will be running. Those are probably the 3 major horses in the race, but I know there's been many rumored other candidates to jump in, but those are the 3 that I'm aware of now. I know there's been many other minor and not so minor names, so it's a long race. There's going to be probably lots of candidates in this race, but those are the 3 main ones. And yeah, each of them presents different skill set and vision for the city, and I'm excited to have a new turnover in leadership because we need efficiency. So that's the City of Buffalo Department of Government Efficiency signing out. And thank you for tuning into the Metachewy Livestream. Until next time, okay, bye.